Hi, and welcome to the behind-the-scenes Q&A of our Bare Earth series. I'm Katrina Pyne, the producer behind the series, and today I'll be asking some questions submitted by you, the viewers, about the making of the series and the science featured in it. And we actually got some really great questions. So without further ado, I'm going to direct the first question over to Robyn Stewart.
My name is Robyn Stewart, and I'm one of the pilots who flies the ACO for Hakai.
So the first question we had for Robyn was, is it ever scary flying in bad weather, and have you had any close calls?
There are a lot of risks flying in mountainous areas, and yes, when we're flying the lines for Hakai to do survey, we do get pretty close to mountains sometimes. As a survey pilot, I actually have a great luxury that generally, if the weather is good enough for survey, then it's just fine for flying airplanes. That said, there's some clear weather conditions that can cause an airplane to lose altitude rapidly in mountains. And so when I'm crossing a line of mountains, I'm always in a position where if I had one of the engines fail or there was an abrupt downdraft, I have an escape route. So I'm thinking about that. One of the more challenging jobs for Hakai I can remember was flying around Mount Robson, one of our biggest mountains, and the lines went very, very close to it. But it's a rule, our pilots, we assess the situation, and if the line is too close, then we figure out a different way to do it, or we just can't get to the end of that line. The day I'm thinking of, we were flying Mount Robson, we did have some bad weather. It was good near the mountain, and then the weather changed and we left and went and landed somewhere else. That really is the best way to cope with bad weather.
Our next question is for Derek Heathfield, and he's the program lead of the Airborne Coastal Observatory here at Hakai. The question is, could the ACO be used for other emergencies like avalanches?
Yeah, the Airborne Coastal Observatory is fairly versatile when you consider the instrumentation that we have on board. Any change to the landscape that might occur through like a landslide or like an avalanche, or it could be flooding, it could be fires. We can consider the ACO as a tool to help understand what change has occurred. With a landslide, there's usually an area of failure, and then there's an area of deposition or an area that's been altered from the processes of that disturbance event. So an avalanche is very similar. While the ACO hasn't worked on avalanches, it would be maybe a similar thing where we could look at if there's been a run out of snow and where that is all positive.
Our next question is for Steve Beffort, who you first met in our Ice and Snow episode.
Hello, I'm Steve Beffort. I'm a geospatial specialist with Hakai Institute, and I take care of the day-to-day sort of operations of the ACO, the Airborne Coastal Observatory.
Our first question for Steve is, what's your favorite view from up high in the plane?
What's my favorite view from up high? I mean, it's hard not to take it for granted when you've been doing it for a long time. There's so many beautiful places and so many beautiful things that you see. Sunsets and sunrises are always really beautiful, no matter where you are. Well, a few of our projects, I have to get a real early start if we're going out to the interior. And, those mornings where you're up at, crack of dawn and you're just getting off the ground and before the sun rises and you see the sunrise come over the mountains and start shedding that alpenglow or shedding the light onto the mountains. I mean, it's a pretty surreal experience.
Next, we asked our pilot Robyn how she's able to fly with such precision.
When I first started flying survey, it was for a different company, and I can remember the chief pilot sat in the right seat, which is that, not the normal flying seat, but the seat you instruct from. And I sat in the left seat and I flew that survey, and I was so tense. I can remember all the muscles in my neck being tense, in my back and my arms. And I flew for, probably maybe 15 minutes, and she's like, okay, take a break. And she flew. It shouldn't have been that hard because there's some basic things that pilots do. I mean, we're supposed to fly in a straight line to get from point A to point B. And when we're landing at an airport in bad weather so we can't see the runway, there are guidance lines on instruments inside the cockpit that we used to follow to get to the runway. Unfortunately, the people that designed the survey screens didn't design them to be exactly the same as the ones that pilots are already trained to use. I've been doing this for 15, maybe 20 years, and I'm still, I still don't think I've had a day where I've been like absolutely perfectly on every line every time. But fortunately, when they program out the data, they can stand a few little slips.
Our next question is for Derek. If you could put one more piece of technology on the plane, what would it be?
I think probably Steve and the other operators would appreciate an espresso machine in the back of the ACO. But if you're meaning mapping instrumentation, I might add a laser that can look through the water. And it's called a bathymetric LiDAR system. And so our LiDAR is in the near infrared, and it is really good at mapping terrain. But you can have lasers that are green, different color, and they're able to actually penetrate the water and map below the water surface. And Hakai Institute's very interested in ocean science. We do a lot of nearshore work. And while this would be very, very challenging, especially in our waters on this coast where they're very turbid or very, lots of very silty, it would be a challenge. But that would be an interesting piece of equipment to add into the mix.
Last question for Steve. If you were able to fly over anywhere in Canada to map it, where would you go?
In Canada, yeah, I've been lots of places, all up and down the coast of BC, Yukon, into Alaska, not Canada, I know, all across in Ontario. I've never been to Quebec, and it's, every place has its own, it's so beautiful. Every place has its own really special part about it. I've never been up to the high Arctic, and I'd like to do some surveying if I get a chance up there. I think I've read lots about it, lots of adventure books, and I've always had a sort of passion or part of me really wanting to go up there and explore. So if I get the opportunity, I'd really like to go up to the high Arctic.
And a similar question for Robyn. What's your favorite place to fly to?
The very first one that came to mind is a place called Bella Coola, which is up a long valley in BC, and the valley sides are really steep. You can't fly straight to it from somewhere other than the valley mouth. So you have to kind of come up, descend into the valley. And once I was flying an operator there, and the operator started like almost screaming at how beautiful it was. So now when I take an operator there, I say like, it is very beautiful, but try not to scream too much because I do have to concentrate on the landing. But after I thought about it a really long time, my favorite place to fly is back home.
And that would probably be a really good place to end this Q&A, except I heard a rumor about our pilot Robyn that I'd like some clarification on. Robyn, is it true that you can speak Klingon?
Yes, I speak Klingon. I'm actually working with Duolingo on the improving the Klingon language course. So if you learn Klingon with Duolingo, when you hear a voice pronouncing the words and sentences, you might recognize that voice.
There you have it. Thank you everyone for watching our series Bare Earth, and I'm going to leave you now with a teaser for our upcoming series, Whale Bones.
On a quiet stretch of beach off the coast of British Columbia, a humpback whale's body washes up on shore. Where did this whale come from? How did the animal die? And what would happen to the humpback next? At the end of one story, another begins. One that will take years to unfold and involve dozens of people untangling the threads of a mystery. Join us for a journey that spans oceans, taking us back in time and forward through discovery. Dive into the hidden lives of humpbacks in Whale Bones.